Okay, so food safety, something y'all deal with every day. But it has to be a priority to make sure that we're taking care of our children and our families. I know that it would just crush me if I thought something I did had led to a child being sick. I'm not sure that I could do my job after that if I thought that something was my fault. But everything we do in the kitchen either makes the food safe or not so safe. Yeah, there's one back there, or you can sit on the front row. Sorry. So I want you to keep in mind that that's so important. So how do we make sure that the food is safe? We've got to store it properly. We've got to prepare it properly, cook it properly, hold it properly. Our temperature logs are so very, very important. And I know you think, oh my gosh, I have so many things to do. Now I have to write all this stuff down too. But if it's not written down, it didn't happen. And if you have a parent call and say, my child got sick and 14 other kids in his class went home sick the same day. Can you see it, Tammy? Are you? Yeah. Okay. They call the health department. I've had this happen last school year in one of my schools in Crowley. A parent called the health department. The health inspector came out. She said, I need your temperature logs. I need your production records. I need your menus. I need a list of every student that went home sick. And she just kept listing and listing and listing paperwork that she needed. Ultimately, proved that it was not our fault, that we had done everything like we were supposed to. But if we hadn't had those temperature logs, we would have very likely been in big trouble. So if we don't do all of these things correctly, making sure that we're storing, preparing, cooking, then we're very likely to end up making somebody sick. And we don't want that because we can lose our customers. Nowadays, so many moms and dads bring their child chicken nuggets from McDonald's every day. I know y'all see it all the time. We don't have a captive audience anymore. How hard would it be to go to work? Our reputation would be ruined. There's a district not far from here that went through this several years ago, and it was forever before they gained that respect back, before anybody trusted allowing their children to eat in their district again. So it's huge. So this is what we have to do. We have to prevent the hazards from getting into our food. The main thing that we deal with is going to be the biological hazard. That's the germs. Okay? The other kinds of hazards that are possible are physical hazards. If you were to have a light bulb break and the glass fall in the food. You have Susie middle schooler come through your line and going like this. Y'all see it every day, I know you do. And her hair's in the food. If you have fuzzies from your rag get in the food. All of those are physical contaminations, okay? Chemical is, of course, your oven cleaner, your sanitizer solution, anything like that. Soap that would get in your food. Those things we don't really have too much problem with. Yeah, Susie middle schooler we do, but main thing is the biological hazard, okay, the germs. So, true or false? A food is said to be contaminated when it contains substances which cause injury or illness when consumed. True. That's right. And what about cross-contamination? Getting rag fuzz or something else like that is also going to be considered cross-contamination. So, what's an example of cross-contamination? Washing your hands after cutting meat, wearing clean clothes, or cutting meat and produce on the same cutting board. Don't do that. That's right. So cutting meat and produce on the same cutting board would be an example of cross-contamination. All right. We have a lot of those biological hazards, those germs. Bacteria and viruses are probably the ones that we deal with the most. Parasites, those of y'all that have been around the block a few times, remember the day when we had to cook pork done because there were worms in it? Okay, we don't have to deal with that anymore. They've cleaned that up. Some of us still think that when we cook pork. But fungi, we don't deal much with mushrooms. Those are actually good fungi. They're edible, but there's others that are not edible. but they're not things that are in our kitchens. The same with toxins. Mostly that's going to be in seafood and shellfish, and we don't deal with those so much. So the main things that we deal with are the bacteria and the viruses. And this chart is really hard to look at on your materials. But the thing that I wanted to show you on this is the fact that every one of these is a foodborne illness that could happen in our kitchens. And all of them come from not controlling your time and your temperature. Okay? This one comes from cross-contamination, like you're cutting meat and produce on the same board kind of idea. And these two come from practicing poor personal hygiene, not washing your hands. Okay? The last one is from getting food from a non-approved vendor. We get all our food from approved vendors, Cisco, Farmers Market, Oak Farms. All of those are approved vendors, okay? If you got produce from your school garden, that would be an example of a non-approved source or an unapproved source, okay? So that one we really don't deal too much with. But all of these are from temperature. So that's the main thing I want you to see out of that is there's so many different kinds of illness that come from not taking care of the temperature of your food. So, another thing I want y'all to know, and you might want to remember this one, bacteria multiplies every 20 seconds. Every 20 seconds. Okay, if you have one bacteria, in 20 seconds you have 2. In 20 seconds you have 4. What if you had 1 million bacteria? And in 20 seconds you have 2 million bacteria. 20 more seconds you have 4 million bacteria. Okay, they don't come in ones, they come in bunches. So think about that too. That's huge when you think about food sitting out. You know, we want you to pan up your food, put it on your Cadillac rack and put it back in the cooler so it stays cold. Pull them out one at a time and cook them instead of having them stand out in the kitchen all day long. Make sense? Okay. So Fat Tom is a little way to help you remember all the factors that go into growing a bacterial problem or a foodborne illness. It needs food. You got lots of food, right? It needs acidity. Anything that's acid type food. Your tomatoes, your I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank all of a sudden. Temperature is an issue. We've gone over that so much already. Time, oxygen. You need to have air for those things to grow, and you need to have moisture. We don't think about melons or lettuce or those kinds of things growing bacteria, but those are some of the things that grow it really, really fast. They're found in melons has been, like watermelon, honeydew, cantaloupe melons, really, really hard to take care of and keep it from growing bacteria. So, do you see altitude in that list? So that might be a factor that's not included, right? Okay, there's going to be a question on your test. Which of these is not a critical factor? So, just want to, which one of these things does not belong kind of question. So,